Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the Tread a Path podcast from Kufi Production, where we explore the inspiring journeys of Muslim professionals across diverse industries. I'm your host, Salman Hasan, and each week we sit down with remarkable individuals who are making their mark in their chosen fields. We highlight their successes and challenges in their journey, examine corporate accountability within the industry, and offer any actionable advice on career advancement or ethical navigation to those who want to tread that path. As a reminder to our listeners, you can find the show notes, resources, and ways to connect with the guests in the Tread a Path archive in kufiproductions.com. So today I'm honored to be joined by Imam Adeel Zeb, CEO of Halal Love Journey, a comprehensive Muslim marriage service offering wedding, officiating, pre-marital and marital coaching, and professional matchmaking. Since 2009, he has been actively involved in Islamic marriages and weddings, serving as a university imam for 13 years at prestigious campuses nationwide. This experience gave him and gives him the deep insight into what are the needs of young American Muslims today and non-Muslims from multicultural backgrounds, including converts and their families. So with that, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course, of course, of course. I'm very excited for
Yeah.
this conversation. Alhamdulillah. So before we dive into your story, tell us, how many weddings have you officiated thus far?
I can tell you I've been speaking and officiating at marriages since 2009. I can tell you that they have been a combination of national and in person and on Zoom, heavily on Zoom during COVID. Um, and then one international on Zoom in Dubai airport.
In an airport.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah.
interesting one.
But I
Okay.
cannot tell you the actual number I have done. That I don't know.
What? Probably over 100. I mean, or 1,000, given you've done this for, geez, if we did the math correctly, 15 years, right?
I guess so.
2009?
2009. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Mashallah. That's a long time. And so I'm sure you'll have a lot to share in our conversation today. But really, I'm sure I gave a good overview, but if you could add on to that overview of what you do in your current role, what does that look like when you're officiating, counseling,
Yeah, yeah.
etc.?
Yeah, so I mean the business really is a multi-tiered business, and we're eventually, inshallah, hoping to get to a place where it can be a one-stop shop for all of the marriage services needs, right, including the legal
Inshallah.
components and whatever it may be, inshallah. But for now, we do the coaching, the pre-marital and early marital. Early marital means like for newlyweds for the first couple of years as they're getting matriculated into this wild world of actually being married. And so, in that process, we have the couples do individually and respectively do assessments. For example, they say like, I believe that my relationship with my in-laws is good. Yes, no, unsure. I believe that we have discussed finances to the point that we are ready to get married. Yes, no, unsure. And so after all of those assessments have been assessed and analyzed, I get the results from the system, and it'll tell me, like, for example, 20% on in-laws, 30% on finances, whatever it may be. And then the issues that they have like a low percentage on are the ones that become one of our main sessions, right? So generally speaking, you do the package, it's like 6 sessions, and that's usually enough. And then people also do individual. So like people who want to get married, but they're trying to figure out like why they're not married, or maybe they were divorced and then now they want to get back into the game, so to speak. The game has changed so much. Basketball has changed. When Steph Curry came, it's not the same basketball anymore, right? So there's dating apps and there's all these things
Yes.
that weren't there before, right? So similar to that there's a change in the air, and how do you advise couples on that? The educational component is, where we do, well, it's part of the coaching and then part of the marriage as well, but also in terms of seminars for different mosques or universities or centers for educating them on marriage, how to find someone, people who are newlyweds, people who want to kind of rebirth or re-energize their marriage for 10 years, 10
Yeah.
plus years, whatever it may be, or
Yeah.
when the kids go to college, then now they're like empty nesters, and how does that work? So that's another kind of educational component. And then nikahs itself, I really, it's a really as a the nikahs and the matchmaking, upcoming matchmaking, inshallah, are both very tailored and concierge services, right? So if you go to the local masjid, for example, the imam is doing 1,000 things in a day. And so then one nikah in that day is like 1 out of 20 things they're doing, right? And so they may not
Yeah.
even know the couple. It's kind of like Krispy Kreme donuts kind of coming off and
Fast food
on.
service. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of standard cutter system. But I have the couple fill out. I meet them first for a complimentary Zoom consultation, and they have to fill out all this if they want to say yes. Fill paperwork out, how they met, why they like each other, why they fell in love, mutual hobbies, family backgrounds, ethnicities, all that jazz. And then we interview them again in the planning meeting, right? And so there's lots of preparation that's done inside to make it seem as if I'm like best friends with the bride and the groom. And I didn't come from all the way from the East Coast or the West Coast traveling across the country. I actually know them so well because I've been working with them at such an intimate level. And I mean, if anyone who's been married, like if it's a really good marriage sermon, so to speak, khutbah and experience, people remember that. I've had clients come to me, like I done ways in Dallas, Texas, where I grew up, and I'll see them at like the the Yemeni coffee house in Richardson. Like their chala, their aunt will be like, I still remember your khutbah is so beautiful. It's like years before,
Years ago.
4 or 5 years before, mashallah. And even, so it's very powerful when you put that intentionality into it and behind it. And a lot of the marriages that I do are intercultural marriages. So like maybe one person converts to Islam, so you're having to navigate different cultures, different preferences and customs. And so there are some couples that I work with that do both coaching or the premarital spiritual counseling and the nikah itself.
Okay.
And some just do the nikahs. And I will say that no one, alhamdulillah, no one who has done the premarital spiritual counseling has gotten divorced with me, but people who have gotten married have gotten divorced. That
I
didn't make
see.
up. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, it does make a big difference when you kind of
Big
go through a
difference.
lot of
Yeah.
those big issues. Like, so in grad school, my master's program, we found that the three main reasons people get divorced are finances, in-laws, and their physical romantic life. And so, when you can identify these before they get started, you've
Yeah.
already knocked out the top three, right? In those
Right.
conversations. So it's to help, inshallah. Then other elements are helping
Of
coaching the
course.
in-laws too. You know,
Yeah.
how do you what I tell the families is before you text, call, or do any kind of action with your children, right? With your child's marriage,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
units. Ask, is this good for my child's marriage or not? Before you say anything, before you write, before you do anything, is it good for my child's marriage or not? Not my child, but the unit, the marriage
Marriage, the
itself,
unit.
right?
Yeah.
And if they can get a muscle memory of that, then it'll be so much lighter for everybody involved. If they get emotional, start saying, writing and then it can cause a whole, I'm sure you've seen with some of your friends and stuff, a whole
Yes.
mess. So I think then, the concierge matchmaking, what we want to do is it's launching next year, inshallah. We're preparing for that right now. I think a lot of people, what they have been doing is to kind of just jump into this, right? And then it leads to a lot of like, bad mouthing in the community. Oh, I tried this service and this happened. I tried that. And they just kind of you know, and so we're trying to be very strategic with that, with business consultants and working with them and just saying, okay, we need to do surveys. We need to be very intentional about how we're going to do this process so that it's as optimal as possible. We'll still make mistakes, but trying to be as
Sure.
optimal as possible, and also
Yeah.
studying different models. So I'm studying Hindu models, Jewish models, Muslim models in the US, Muslim models in the UK to see how do we optimize what is the best way to matchmake. And then in my PhD work, my dissertation topic is about Muslim marriage as well. And so I'm taking that data and that research and then infusing it into the business and how we're going to be handling different realms of the business, inshallah.
Inshallah. No, that's really honestly, I'm excited. I'm already married, I have kids, and I'm excited for this, right? Like, even though
Yeah.
maybe I might have benefit for later on, but for my children, inshallah. But no, this is really exciting stuff. I wish this was available much early
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I think one thing I'll add for the concierge matchmaking service is people often ask, like, what are you going to do that's different than other people? Right.
Hmm.
And I think one is, I've been working as a university chaplain for 13 years. I've been working with young people, college students, young professionals with their relationship dynamics across the country from all parts, from all parts of the world as their students, but I've been working throughout the country with that. There's international components. I think that's one kind of difference. Two is that most matchmakers are females, even if across religions, across cultures, even if the founder of the company is male, they'll still hire women to do the matchmaking. And so, generally speaking, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, but our community segregates sociologically. If the genders aren't meeting, then how are women going to be able to find quality men?
yep,
You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? And
yeah,
generally
yeah,
speaking, are throughout it's ubiquitous across cultures and religions, they are inclined for serious relationships, either a serious boyfriend or a husband or whatever it may be. If they're practicing Muslims, and their, of course, would be husband, right? But but the men, you have to kind of work and find the ones who are actually into that,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I think that's another difference. I think my PhD studies going into the business is another difference. We plan on meeting the families and not just matching individuals, and that's been a big problem.
That's
So
huge.
I'm sure you've seen that happen too, where so I've had people come to me in my chaplaincy work where they were coming and like I had a person, I'll change the countries, right? I have a person who was Turkish, and the girl he was seeing was Pakistani. And for 6 years they were dating, not because they wanted to, because they wanted to get married. But the parents kept saying no. And ultimately they said no, they didn't get married. And then that guy for 2 years emotionally couldn't even think about another woman, you know? A situation I had, I'll change it again. But the woman was white and then the guy was Afghan doctor, and his mom kept saying no for 7, 8 years, and they didn't get married. 7, 8 years together.
My
So
goodness.
I think like being able to meet with the families, understanding the dynamics. Of course, every time it's not this, it can't work. Sometimes people have really tough family dynamics and they can't meet the families, right? Having dinner with
Yeah,
them is
yeah.
important. Or they're converts, maybe it's not possible, but however you can, meeting their close friends, having dinner with them, seeing what are our deal breakers collectively, and then also working on the parents. Parents
Mm.
sometimes may be too picky about things, right? We want a woman from Pakistan, not just Pakistan, but has to be Sindhi from Karachi, and it's like, come on,
Yeah.
guys. Like we're 1% of the Muslims in America. We have to be a little more flexible and.
Right, right, right.
And I mean, having lived across different parts of the US, I understand cultural dynamics, right? Like if you're in
Hmm.
the East Coast and you're in New York City, it's far different than being in Houston, Texas. Far different than being in Orange County, California, right? So there
Yeah.
are cultural differences, even in the same country, opening up. And then I think also we're going to be very big on the vetting process. If someone says they make $200,000 a year, they went to Harvard University, we want to see the proof of those accolades.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea is that, let's say, inshallah, in the future, someone you have children and they want to get married, then you know that in this system, everyone's been vetted.
Hmm.
But if you end up as a father, if you have a daughter, and you go to the guy and you're like, "Let me see your W-2, let me see your transcript from Stanford or Harvard," then they may take it the wrong way, right? But
You're
the
right.
idea is a third party is doing it for you, so that it's not as like emotional in that, and you walk in with a peace of mind.
So let me ask you this. So that's very interesting. You gave all these examples of experiences because, well, as you know, right, when a marriage happens, it's not just the marriage of two individuals, but families getting together, right? And so that comes with its own, you know, bag of challenges, right? But I'm sure you face other challenges in terms of like at an individual level, right? So, for example, like the Afghan and the white couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who were, like you said, 8 years, right? And a lot of it has to do with you were saying the guy's side of the family, right? But I'm sure that stretching the dating period for that long can cause a lot of like, unnecessary emotional baggage, ruptures, you know what I mean? So in that sense, as a imam and as a chaplain, like, trying to manage through like how do you navigate through those kind of issues? Like, I know it has ethics into it, but it's like, like sometimes religion plays into it as well, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they are religious.
Yeah. I mean, I think even if people are religious, if they're together that long, it's not a good formula for a lot of reasons, right? It's just too long, and I think that the idea of us being individualistic in our relationships is highly problematic.
Hmm.
Relationships
Yeah.
themselves are supposed to be communal in their nature, and so we have shura in Islam of consultation, right? And then you ask people, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask people of knowledge if you don't know what Allah says in the Quran. So you want to consult people, right? So if a couple comes to me and they say, we're having this problem, and it's been a year, gotta move on now. Like if
Right.
they're not
Right.
if they're not saying yes, you either have to go against your mom's wishes or you have to move on, and that's it, because otherwise there's just so much that's going to build up for all those years. It's impossible to think that you can just automatically heal by getting married. And
Yeah.
again, in the future,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
8, 7 years of that, and then that trauma will pass down to your children too. Unfortunately, transnational trauma is a real scientific element in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. So there's a lot of questions I have around like, a relationship building and in finding the right spouse, but we'll get to that later on. So let's start from the beginning about your story, right? And how what got you interested to begin with, right? Like why there is a great need for it, of course, right? But why did you feel particularly important or like, a need to go down this path? What were your early influences to shape you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing that you're mentioning before was just like, man, I wish I had this kind of services when I was
Yeah.
younger, right? And I remember the first time I wanted to get married, I would probably say I was like like last year of high school, early college. I thought about, then I really felt like the need of like having a partner. And, when it came time to start meeting women and people when I was an early graduate, I think from college, it was so, I mean, polarizing, right? So you
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
go to this person's house and they got their whole, like, I remember at one time I went to Houston to meet this woman and the whole squad is there, like grandma, uncle, mom, siblings, it's like a whole team, right? And you're like, what? And it's like me and my mom, and we're like, oh my God, this is just so awkward. And they're like, do you have any questions? And I'm like, what am I going to ask in front of the entire, you're like, that grandparents here, just like a whole, I'm
The whole
like,
tree.
but
Yep.
I heard you like baseball. I mean, what am I supposed to say at that moment? You know what I mean? And I think that needs some development too, right? Anyways, so I think that was one thing. Like, how do you find someone? What do you say to them? What questions do you ask? How do you engage in that dynamic? How do you work with their potential in-laws and engaging if this is a good match for me, right? And for my family, I think those are all things that were on my mind in retrospect, like how important they were. Like it doesn't seem that important at the time, but then the older
Hmm.
and wiser you get,
Yeah.
then you realize, oh, this is actually a huge thing. So I think that was one major reason why. And I think working as a chaplain, as I mentioned, I started to, relationship problems was the number one, they get the FAQs, like frequently asked
Yeah.
questions, it's like number
Yeah.
one, issue people come in is relationship problems with their family or their like significant other, or that was almost always like why they're coming into the office, right? no matter if they had a religion or not religion across the cultures. And then people ask, well, do you do nikahs? And I was like, okay, I can go learn how to do that. We studied, kitab and nikah. We studied like how like the ins and outs from a fiqh or right perspective of how to actually do the ceremony. No one like teaches you that. So you have to like, okay, learn how to do that. And then you start doing that, and get better at it. And then people were like, well, do you do any kind of premarital coaching or counseling? And I was like, okay, well, so I got trained in that extra training in that outside of my chaplaincy trainings. And, then people were like, do you do matchmaking? And I think that was like, that was the realization where I kept getting that question. Do you do matchmaking? Do you do matchmaking? Do you do matchmaking? And then I kept getting how hard it is to find quality guys. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. Like there are I know quality guys.
You're right.
The problem is they're not connecting to the women because we're like, even in universities today, the idea of like mixing guys and girls is very taboo. Young professionals, it's still very taboo. Like people post college, right? Still
Yeah.
very taboo.
Yeah.
But you find like scholars like Dr. Hatim al-Hajj, and he has a book about mixing. He's one of those top scholars in America, mashallah. And, he's saying that, at these kinds of functions, you should be mixing and finding a spouse. It's very difficult to find a spouse, right? And so, you know, there are times, right? And so I think that was another thing was just like, this is just, and then I think when we getting into the marriage, we have no idea what we're getting into. We have no idea. And everybody's focused on the wrong elements, right? So it's like how big the party is going to be, especially like, Dallas. I know you're in Dallas and I grew up in Dallas, and like the weddings in Dallas are
Lavish.
like Dubai weddings, or
It
Lebanon
doesn't
weddings,
even. Yeah.
Instagram, right? And so, but no one's focusing on like how are we preparing these kids for the next 50, 60 years of their life. And no one's talking about that, right? They're thinking about the Mendi, like the henna, and they're thinking about what hotel we're going to book and how the dessert rooms and whatever else is going on, and bringing in like Punjabi singers from London. I mean, I've seen all kind of stuff in Dallas, right? And but no one's talking about working on the couple, and so I think those are some of the main reasons that I got into this.
It's great. And I'm glad, or I mean, better late than never. That's what I always say, right? Like,
Yeah.
at least there's somebody doing it. And number two, there's just, you're absolutely right. Like, there's so much into, marriage planning, marital counseling. You're bringing two worlds together to make another world, essentially, right? And then when kids start to get involved, then that adds some more complexities, more layers, right? On top of that. So no, that's wonderful that was the, I guess the early influences that kind of help push you into that direction. Were there any like mentors in particular that you kept close with as you were charting your territory or your path to chaplaincy and to this?
Yeah. I think, my mentors have, I don't want to say they change, but I do want to say as I evolve, I think that the mentors themselves, like at some point you start to learn, a little bit more about certain topics, subtopics and your mentors. At the same time, you also need to have your mentors for those and other topics, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a weird dynamic,
It's not just one mentor, but like you have multiple for different purposes, right?
Right. And so
Right.
like, for example, if I'm a doctor and I have a doctor mentor, right? And then
Yeah.
I become a cancer specialist doctor, right? And then my
Right.
doctor mentor is is like a foot doctor, right? Or a brain doctor, neurologist, right?
Right.
And so at some point I know more about cancer than my mentor, right?
True.
But
True.
overall, medicine, the practice of it and those dynamics, they will still know more than me because of their experience and their years
Right.
and whatever else.
Right.
Right? So, but both are true at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, you get to that kind of point where, but yeah, I think, Dr. Hatem al-Hajj, like I mentioned before, has been, is a current mentor. Imam Sahib Webb is a current mentor. Dr. Yasser Qadhi, kind of in and out, is also, a mentor, especially because he navigated the PhD realm as well, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Dr. Ingrid Mattson, she was very formative in my seminary years as well. And so there's Isam Rada was my main sheikh, Walipe Sunni. Like there are people who were kind of a little bit older, like and they're 10
With
plus
more
years on you.
wisdom.
And they also have more, Islamic knowledge, mashallah. And so you're wanting to gain from them, and there's something that no knowledge can replace, and that's wisdom and experience. And so when you can learn from their mistakes, it's always the best, I think, philosophy and policy.
That's great, mashallah. It's always good to have a good set of mentors to that you can rely on for different needs because yeah, as you said, like it's not it's very rare you can find with that one mentor to cover all bases,
Yeah.
right? Because oftentimes people specialize in one area or another, right? So it's better to have a handful or a set of mentors to be able to, guide you through your path, inshallah. So let me ask you this. What's the most rewarding aspect of your work?
The most rewarding aspect, I think, when we
Well, obviously, if the couple is married and they're happy,
Hmm.
but like, I'm like along the journey, I'm sure like along the
Yeah,
journey,
I,
there's
I I think there's times, right? Like I said, like when I went to that coffee house in Dallas and I saw that family 5 years later, uh, maybe 3 years later it was from the time that we had done their nephew's marriage. They were just so happy to see me, and were so happy about the marriage, the khutbah and service. That makes me very happy. I think like seeing people that I've gotten married in the community also, and kind of like reconnecting with them, it also makes me very happy.
it just further validates the work you're doing and keeps you going,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then there's been times where I've gotten my former students married. It's also very, very precious.
That's very nice.
Oh, it's so much. I mean, you used to have halakas with them and have lunch with them and boba, and now you're doing their marriage, and it's just very beautiful.
Mashallah, mashallah,
So I
alhamdulillah.
think those things are, and then they're having kids too, their own. It's just then you feel really old. You're like, super unk mode, but
Yeah. No, it's all worth it at the end of the day because it is a very much very delicate process. I just keep thinking about that one example of 8 years, right, of trying to
yeah,
make it work with the spouse, and it's just so unfortunate if like that it didn't work out. Uh, and, Allah's the best planners, as we always say, but it's just sometimes I, it's very frustrating, and infuriating at times that culture
hmm.
and traditions and some like I guess some would say narrow-mindedness get in the way of actual good potential
Yeah,
matches, right?
yeah,
And so I was gonna get into like some of the dilemmas that are most common in your field, but I would imagine this is one of them, right? Like as you're consulting, with your clients and your potential spouses or matches to be, would you agree that one of the most common issues are the families themselves?
yeah, yeah. And so I think that's and that's a big one. I had another couple, a young man come to me, and he was going to get married to a woman, and they were, Somali and Ethiopian, and which isn't too much of a cultural difference. There is different, but not too much of a cultural difference, right? As opposed to like, some other, like
The continent, continent,
Ireland
yeah,
and like,
yeah,
Somalia.
yeah, yeah.
And so, but they talked for 6 months. The women were all involved, the mothers, the aunts, right? And then once her dad was involved 6 months later, out, done, out, canceled the whole thing. And so, it's a huge problem. And I think one thing that we don't really, I think, fully internalize as a community is the element of, so Dr. Layla Ahmed, she has a book on women and gender in Islam. And
Mm,
that's not the reason I bring it up, it's not because of the title, but because of, she argues that once a land has been colonized or has been imperially taken over, it is no longer the same land anymore or the same culture anymore. The culture now has been mutated into a different,
yes. Yep.
and that's not gonna, you know, and that's just, it's changed now. And so I think we as Muslims have definitely inherited a lot of that colonial mindset of white Christian European supremacy into our psyches and the way we flow. So you have a lot of racism, a lot of colorism, a lot of insecurity, a lot of nationalism, tribalism that aren't from our Islamic tradition, but they are imposed upon us. And so you're having to like decolonize an entire
Yes. I was thinking of that word. Yes.
generations, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and peoples, right? And that's very difficult to do, you know. Um,
So I'm glad that you brought up the word decolonize because that is very intricately tied to accountability,
mm,
right? Typically, that we see in history, those who are the colonizers, they don't follow accountability,
mm,
right? Or they're not accountable for their own actions, right? They almost act on their own whims or nuffs, as we say, right? Whatever they feel like what's needed is what they will, you know, take and pillage and whatever, right? So in the process of decolonization and decolonizing our mind, how can individuals and Muslims collectively, I guess, also push for reform and push for like advocacy for that accountability? Like in your experience, how does that look like?
yeah, I mean it's very difficult to do that, but I think one of the ways moving forward is awareness, right? You have to kind of make people
Yeah,
aware.
yeah,
Like a lot of your nations, like nations come and go.
yeah,
They're not like set in like the USSR was this conglomerate, right? Huge mega state, so to speak. And then it broke down, right? And then
right.
other countries were born, like Uzbekistan, right? India was this whole place, and then it under colonized British rule,
You're
and
right.
then it broke up into other small nations, right? And so, these things come, they're here, and they're not there. They come and go. And so to hold on to identity based upon your nation is not that intelligent because effectively you're basing your identity on something that's so interchangeable and arbitrary that if you lose that, then what are you? Who are you?
What? Yeah,
Right. And so same thing with the idea of tribalism, right? As soon as you marry someone or your child does, someone different country or land or ethnicity, then that tribal thing is gone as well. And
yeah,
so that's also similarly not as intelligent as could be. But then when you have identity as a Muslim, that is going to stay continuous perpetually if you're in Mars as a destination where humans go to live in, instead of Earth one day, then you're a Muslim in Mars.
yeah, yeah. So essentially, what you're saying is your identity should be tied to the one thing that's permanent or that the thing, what's everlasting versus the temporary, right? So like, your identity is based on Islam or the deen or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's gonna last. That's what will make you successful eventually versus tying your identity to, like you're saying, a tribe, a nation, a
Yeah.
people, or
Yeah.
whoever, right? Because ultimately a creation, you know, um, very, in the whole grand scheme of things. I'm glad you said this because, when, and, what, when we, in this podcast, we talk a lot about like, the influence of Dean in your career. It's always important to ground yourself that your career doesn't really define you, right? It's what you do with your actions in your career that defines you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And so, I mean, you know, easy example, right? Like in this economy, people are changing jobs like every year, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
and oftentimes people are unemployed for so long,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of people go through an identity crisis because of unemployment, right? They can't fathom that they're not something, right?
Yeah.
Because
It's really hard.
they're tying their identity to a profession,
Yeah. We're some
right?
people can do that. Yeah.
And so rather than doing that, like you were saying, tying your identity to being a Muslim or Islam or, something
Yeah.
that's permanent, that will last you and that will ultimately give you, success. So my next question for you are who are some successful examples of professionals or groups that have brought on positive change besides the one you mentioned earlier, right, about mentors, but like are there any that come to mind in the world of um uh in the world of matchmaking? Of course, Halal Love Journey is one of the, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like I'm sure there are a lot of people who
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
are there examples of people who can people
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
look up to?
Yeah. I think, yeah, there's, I think one example that comes to, I mean, there are a couple of them. I think the um, one that comes to mind locally in the States is Baba Ali with Hafardine. I think
Oh yes,
that's a fine establishment, mashallah. I think I talk too good about him and about his business that I lose some business doing so. But
but it's communal, right? Like it's
yeah,
communal
I guess
success.
so.
So it's like
Inshallah, man.
he'll inshallah right back at you, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but definitely, he does mashallah great job. He's obviously very passionate about his work because when you go to his events, they're top quality, and
yeah,
I think experientially, I can't say I've gone to too many nowadays, but I've been to many of these matrimonial events, right? A national
yeah.
one, ISNA, ICNA, right? And then his, and then others, and Texas Dawa, and so forth, and local regional ones. And his matrimonial events are just amazing. Like he has nice activities, nice. He makes his own like board games for his events. Mashallah, very dedicated individual. Hires like professional companies, do the metrics and character personality evaluations and classification. So he does such great work, mashallah. And people on his website are pretty serious about getting married and not just having fun. It's a very serious marriage intentionality focused platform. So I think he would be
How about on the East Coast? Since
uh
you both are West Coast, right? How about East Coast?
yeah. Uh I don't know if I'm gonna say coast or west or south, but
Or anybody? Yeah, yeah.
I'll just
Or
say, yeah, I'll just say, maybe I'll just say like, just names of places or
and
things that are doing.
sure.
I think anybody who's doing the matchmaking element, Bob Ali does like events and he does the website. That's like his main thing, right?
Yeah,
And they're both kind of connected together. But I think anyone who's in the matchmaking realm, that's a lot of work, because people are just so picky. And you have to really work on people too,
yeah,
and so I think that's probably our topic to talk about maybe today, but later, but that's another thing. But I think that is definitely one. There is Naseem. She has a UK business and she's really great matchmaker. Um, and really dedicated, really passionate about the work. And I think that's what you really want to have is like this passion, this work ethic, and hopefully sincerity. But Allah does that. We can't judge that ourselves. I think um, those are super, super important to really be passionate. And how can I find ways to make this with ihsan, excellence,
yeah.
So I think they're doing that. Mhm.
And I promise that there was a reason why I asked that question about like successful examples of those who are
Yeah.
in the industry, because there's this whole, like the app industry, right?
Yeah.
There's so many apps, right? And the push for convenience and doing things quickly
And low cost.
and low cost. There you go, right? And it's so counterintuitive to the entire premise and objective of matchmaking and finding your life partner, right? Because this is not something you want to take lightly or do it quickly or save a buck or two to find your ultimate
Yeah.
spouse, right?
Yeah.
So, not that I'm saying that there's anything to do with anything against the apps or anything, right? Some are really, genuinely they're good.
Yeah.
However, they and this was talking to Bob Ali about a couple weeks ago. They missed the entire point about going through the process together, right? From this like discovery, I sometimes say, but like, finding the person seeing the person for the first time, talking to them, talking to the parents, be in consultation with someone like yourself, right? Or any mom or someone. And then even after the fact, right? You still need to be in consultation, right? You still
Hmm.
need those
Hmm.
mentors. You still need those
You definitely have to have mentors. Yeah.
like those counselors, right? Because this is a lifelong journey, right?
Hmm.
You're not meant to. There's no way that anyone has the solution to everything, right? And it's also a communal thing, right? A lot of times what these apps do is like, you're swiping and it's just an activity and it's very individualistic. Going back to your earlier point about like society has been turned very individualistic, especially in the Western societies, where you're very much encouraged to do things on your own, be independent, save money, right? And but where in fact success thrives in the community, right? And getting, being a team player and working with your community to be able to achieve whatever you want to achieve in life, right?
Yeah.
And so that leads me to my next question about like when it comes to matchmaking and like, counseling in general, right? What's the most common issue or, you know, problem that you see in, even till today that
Yeah.
people are still making and that we need to fix?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I would just to clarify, I would be remiss if I don't say something about somebody in the app world. That would probably be a problem,
Probably a good idea. Yes.
a problem on me.
Sure. Go ahead.
I should probably mention like, so saying Muz is a very, Shazad Yunus is the founder of Muz, excuse me. And he's really passionate about continuing to improve his platform. And
Yeah.
he's been very vocal about that. This is what we were, this is what we're trying to become. And he's always trying to so I want to make sure I've got a website, an event person I've mentioned, I've got a matchmaking person, and then I've also got an app person mentioned. I think that's important to just,
That's a very important distinction clarification for sure. Like I said, I don't have anything against apps. I just think that a lot of people misinterpret the need, um, they misinterpret the whole process of matchmaking to just limiting to apps, right?
right, exactly.
Not everything is in your
Yeah.
profile,
Yeah.
right?
People ask me that. I say, I have a business. They say, oh, you have an app? And I say, no. And then they say, oh, you're doing events? And I was like, not really. And then they go, what are you doing? So it's like, it's very it's foreign. But once they hear about it, like, this is amazing. But but it's so foreign. I think the problems, to answer your question, right? So when we're talking about the matchmaking, there are two killer phrases, killer meaning like cancerous phrases
Hmm.
in our community. And that is, I don't want to settle and I have a checklist. And these two phrases
Yes.
become the
Yes.
biggest barriers to getting somebody married, right? I'm just waiting. I don't want to settle. I don't want to settle. And I'm going to just dissect both of these for a moment, if
Sure.
you'll indulge
Please
me.
do.
But so the idea of saying that I don't want to settle, right? Okay, dude, like no matter who you marry, you're going to settle. What do you think? This is not like you can build your own AI husband and AI wife and then, have all the things you want on it and it just kind of pops up on your lawn like an Amazon delivery. Like, what are you talking about, right? Like, if you look at Prophet Sallam, right, when he got married to Khadija, he wasn't a rich and wealthy man.
No.
He wasn't a highly educated man, right? He had a good, like, tribal lineage. Like, that was, that had utility back then, right? Like,
Yeah.
from Quraysh and
Yeah.
noble tribe of Quraysh and all that stuff, right? He didn't have, like, family support. He wasn't getting this big inheritance coming in from his dad. His dad died before he was born, right? So there was, like, nothing coming in. So, but his character was his utility, right? His work ethic
Yes.
was his utility. And that's why
Yes.
he got married. Now, if you look at that from this perspective, did she settle in terms of financial prosperity? Yes, she did. But did she marry the best human being in the world of all time? Yes. You know? And so no matter who we marry, we're going to settle on somebody, right? That's just how it is. And if you think that, oh, if I marry is handsome, and then they're a surgeon, and then they're like Hafiz Quran and whatever else, and their family has money, and they're 6'6", and they're, all those things, right? But then if they're a surgeon, you're never going to see them, right? And then that wasn't on your list, but it became one after you married them, right? Well, I thought
Right.
everyone about it, but he's gone for 1 week doing surgeries, and he comes back for a week, and then he's gone for a week, come back for so right. So no matter who you marry, you're going to settle. That's just how it is.
By the way, I'm glad you tied settling with character, because y- technically you can settle with anyone who has X, Y, and Z checklist, right? But if they don't have the character, no amount of settling is going to help you, like, because there's no proper character. But anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
Now, the other one is the checklist. Okay. Oh man. So like you can have a checklist, right? And again, they're both tied together, right? Because I'm settling because I'm not going to settle because it made my checklist.
Right,
But
right,
then there could be things that weren't on your checklist that you find out later, right? They could have all these things, but they could be very emotionally and physically abusive, right? They haven't gone to proper like mental health to go over their childhood traumas, and there are so many things that you just didn't see or couldn't see because of that. So I think, and the parents have a checklist, and then the clients have checklists too, and so you have to work on both.
that's my goodness.
The parents are more interested in like class, generally speaking,
Mm,
like
hmm. Yeah,
what are the parents of the prospective spouse do? What's their education level? What's their caste or zat, like their tribe, or what we want to call it? These things they focus on, country of origin more, and then younger people they're focused on like appear. Well, there's a problem too. Like for women, appearance is more the utility than the man from the parents. But then for the women and the clients themselves, they both want someone who's attractive, right? And I
right.
think that's good. I think you should be talking to your spouse, because otherwise it's just disaster, and as well. But you're having to navigate two checklists, right? And so you have to kind of simultaneously work on the husband and I'm sorry, the husband and wife, and then also work on their parents, their
Parents,
families too, to kind of
checklist.
like,
So you have
okay,
4
you're giving me all
checklists.
these wants. What do you need? So I was talking to this person who's a hotshot, what Silicon Valley hotshot dude and startup dude. And he's like, I was like, you have to separate what you want and what you need. Like, do you startup guys, do you all want a woman who's a startup woman? Like, is that what you want to have? Do you want a woman working 70 hours a week and you never see them and they're always drained? Or do you need to have a woman who can support you in that business, who can take care of your home, have some meals ready for you? Like for your situation, what is best for you?
Right,
Right. And I think that can work across both genders. You have a woman who is a surgeon and she's like, okay, you married another surgeon. Who's raising your children? If you're both out all the time working, then who's taking care of your kids?
right,
It's not going to be up to you, your grandma or grandpa until they're not healthy enough. It's going to be these, babysitters and daycare people. Is that a parent, or is that a so who is formulating and raising your children, what they're going to be? So I think those are really important questions to talk, that happen, that you have to work, that come across a lot.
No, I'm so glad you brought these up, because not only they're, some of the most problematic questions and mindset to
Mm-hmm.
have, but also it just, if once you get rid of these, it solves like 50% of the problems, right? And like you achieve your goals much quicker than, if you did, right? Um, so that's great. Thanks, appreciate it. And we're almost at time. We're having a great conversation. I wish I could keep going, but I want to leave some time for like any like resources that you'd recommend, and advice, and things like that. So what you were mentioning about books earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what books or website or resources in general do you recommend someone who either wants to look for a spouse or wants to be in the matchmaking business or just help a friend find a spouse, right? Like what has helped you or helped others in that
Yeah.
regard?
So I think number one is work on yourself. Get yourself in a position where you are emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally ready to be in that role. I think that's the number one most important thing. When the individual themselves is well calibrated in these realms,
Hmm. Yeah.
then they're going to attract people that are well calibrated, and they're going to be able to differentiate between those who are and who aren't. And then when you're in that role as a husband and as a father or as a wife and a mother, inshallah, then you're
Sure.
able to do so in an appropriate way. If I'm coming in as an unregulated father and unregulated husband, and my wife gets angry or my child gets angry, and I don't know how to control my own emotions, I'm not gonna be able to handle the situation properly enough, right? So I think and it goes both ways with her and with the children as well. So that's something very, very, very important for us to, number one. I think there's a couple of really good books. I think Dr. Gary Chapman has a couple of books on the five love languages, which it's an excellent book to read, to learn your own love languages. And then I think so you're going to have like a top two or top three in your love languages, right? So let's say your top one is like words of affirmation, and maybe your five is acts of service. But maybe you marry someone whose number one is acts of service, right? And
Yeah.
so that is like bottom pit for you. That's like least important thing in the world. But you got to train yourself to make that number two.
Hmm. Yeah.
Muscle memory,
Muscle.
because
Yeah.
so then your spouse will feel loved more. Does that make sense? Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one. Then he has another book. It's something like Dr. Gary Chapman again, What I Wish I Knew Before I Was Married. And it's also a great book. And I think in that book, he mentions, he's like a white American man. And in that book, he says to date the family of the woman or the man you want to marry as much as possible. Right. So this idea of like you marrying the family is not just like this antiquated Eastern
Sure.
concept. This is a
Yeah. Yeah.
very ubiquitous across the world. Right. So I think that's another one that's a really good book that come to mind. I think anything from the Gottman Institute is usually pretty good, pretty solid, research based. It can work across different religions, and they have some free material online as well. And that would be very helpful. And I think just reading some researches, go to Google Scholar. There's a lot of free material out there, and just type in topics about marriage that you're concerned about, like dating, online stuff, and whatever it may be. And you'll find a lot of a wealth of information. Um, you know,
No,
however
for
you
sure.
go.
Thank
But
you.
I
Appreciate it.
last thing I'll just say as a precautionary measure is, with the advent of AI, it has gotten more scary than it was before.
Yeah.
Even
Yes.
in the recent years, right?
Yes.
App years, so to speak. The app years have now mutated too.
Yeah.
They've been
Yeah.
colonized by AI. So now they have become something else. So I could get my entire app profile from AI, and I could get my pictures from AI, and I could get or enhance them, whatever it may be, right? Video, I can make myself somebody
Yeah.
else, even like a
Yeah.
Zoom call, And so there's people that are doing like Islam and Khabib from the UFC fighters. They're like prank calling women with that
That
accent
face.
sounding and
Deep
that
fake.
face.
Yeah.
Deep fakes. And then they have the woman would be like, let me see your championship belt if you really Islam. And he has a little fake belt over a stool in the back. He says, hey, look, do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
on a lesser level, think about what could happen with young Muslims who are trying to get married, right?
Married. Yeah.
And so I think that's also something that it's even more important in this realm to have people like matchmakers, because they verify as a real people
Yeah.
in the community.
100%.
They've hopefully met the families, and they're working with them, and there is a level of a little less scary than just random people on.
When you mentioned AI, I was thinking of this example of I saw this on one of the social media, and there was a news about a couple that broke up because the wife was getting marriage advice from ChatGPT or AI, and I was speechless because like A, you're getting advice from a non-human being.
Yeah.
B, you're getting marriage advice from AI whose responses are very tailored, and who knows the extent to the dangers of that particular use case there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of wonderful use cases for AI and its technologies, but
Yes,
if
of
not
course.
used properly, it's detrimental, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to put that caveat out there, right? Oh, while all these resources are good, it never replaces a human being, right? Or a matchmaker, or a mentor, or a scholar. So so appreciate that. So before we wrap up, right, I want to ask you this: what's next in your journey? Is there anything exciting coming up? Anything
Yeah.
you want to share?
Yeah, no, I know. I think our next big thing is the concierge matchmaking. We're doing a pre-launch right now, so people who are interested can go to our website, halallovejourney.com, and then they can go to the contact us and then type in their that they're interested in the matchmaking, and then the form, or email us from there at the info. And yeah, then they can get signed up for, if they have friends or family who are looking to get married, inshallah, they can also sign up for it. So it's better to sign up now for the pre-launch than to wait, because then it'll become massively spread out throughout the country, and then it'll get very inundated. So if you're first in line, it's easier to get, kind of like when those new electric cars come out and then they had the signups for them.
Yeah. No. So yeah, if you're watching this, sign up now, then later, because you never know if you miss that opportunity. So alhamdulillah. Well, Imam Adeel, thanks so much for sharing your journey
Thank you.
and all your insights. So profound and insightful. I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with you, and I know I've resonated a lot, right? And honestly, I felt like some of these advice I can apply to my life, right? As well. So alhamdulillah, I appreciate you coming
Thank
here
you,
and
Salman. Thanks for
sharing
having
with
me.
us.
It's a great podcast, mashallah. May Allah bless you and bless your family, and bless this and accept this as a sadaqah jariyah for you.
Ameen.
And in this life also, while we're all together, and help this to be a source of purification for you, and a source of connecting you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very closely.
Ameen. Ameen. All right. Well, jazakallah khair, inshallah, to the viewers, and we'll see you again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Tread a Path podcast. You can find all the resources our guests mentioned in the Tread a Path archive in our website, coffeeproductions.com, along with the links to connect with our guest speakers. If today's conversation inspired you or helped you in your own professional journey, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave us a review, share the episode with someone who might benefit, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. May your treaded path be blessed and full of wisdom. Assalamu alaikum.